Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, Pack_Data. Well, I do want to start off with something that I had forgotten to mention. It's a little bit old, but it's very important that I bring it up. Dick Jauron, former longtime Chicago Bears head coach, has passed away. Said many times, as much as I have disdain for the Chicago Bears, I have sort of a weird and deep admiration for a lot of former Chicago Bears in a way that I don't for a lot of other teams. I kind of do with, like really high. I mean, I don't know. I guess anybody in the NFC North, but I just feel like there's a lot more with Chicago. Obviously, Megatron and, Jared Allen in Minnesota. But there's just something, again, probably growing up in Illinois, I watched a lot of Bears games. I didn't get to see every single Packers game. I certainly got to see every Bears game. So you become very familiar with the coaches and the players and everything else. He's had a long career with a lot of different teams, including Detroit. But 74 years old, and sounds like it kind of was a shock. He apparently was just diagnosed with cancer a few days earlier, so it's not entirely uncommon to hear stories like that. By the time you find out, if depending on the situation, it can go pretty quick. But pretty scary that, one day you got a, dad, husband, whatever, things can change quick. But anyways, I just wanted to mention that and in some small way honor Mr. Dick Jauron. I've been sitting on this one for a while. There's been a lot of things going on with the Super Bowl and everything else. I wanted to touch on this one real quick. I haven't heard anyone talk about this or mention this. This is the case a lot, right? This was sort of the case with the, was it like DirecTV or something? These really big cases that are kind of flying under the radar here. The NFL was, I guess, sued by the NFLPA. I don't know if sued is the right word, but they had a grievance filed against them, and the arbitrator found evidence or found the NFL guilty of collusion. Essentially, the NFL was found to have discouraged teams from offering fully guaranteed contracts. They specifically highlighted certain I've been trying as hard as I can to dig and find details. Like, what does this mean? What are you talking about? It's one of the reasons why it's been hard to kind of bring it up, because it's hard to form an opinion when I don't exactly know what this even necessarily means. But as much detail as I can find, the NFLPA filed a grievance against the league and found that the league did discourage teams from offering fully guaranteed contracts to certain quarterbacks, including Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and Kyler Murray. Now, it sounds like the guilty verdict doesn't actually really do anything, because essentially what it sounds like they were seeking was damages, right? If you are preventing me from getting X, Y, and Z contract, then I want sort of makeup compensation. I want damages. You cost me this much money. I want that money. They said that they were able to find them guilty of collusion, but the evidence was not strong enough to support damages. The reason being, when you're talking damages, the people doing the suing, the players, the NFLPA or whatever, would have to demonstrate that there's a loss of income, and you can't necessarily do that. There's no real reason to believe that, first of all, the team was intending to offer a fully guaranteed contract or any more or less amount of money. It could just simply be something, as straightforward as the NFL saying, hey, be better if you didn't do that. And it's like, okay. It's kind of like if you were planning on offering, $20 an hour to an employee, and, somebody comes along and they're like, hey, I don't think these people should be paid more than $20 an hour, because if we start doing 25, 30, it's going to get too expensive. And it's like, yeah, I agree. And then you go on with your life and they're like, they colluded. And it's like, bro, he sent me an email. I was always going to pay $20 an hour. Like, I can't help that this idiot is going around doing this stuff, but that's got nothing to do with me. So that's kind of where that sits. I guess my biggest question is, why does the NFL care? Why do they feel the need to micromanage what other teams are doing? It's not really your business. I mean, even if you think it's a bad idea, so what? let teams make bad decisions. All that's going to do, I mean, they still have to work within the financial framework. So you offer too much to a quarterback, and then you can't offer as much for anybody else, and it ends up being a bad idea. We've already seen the one instance of a fully guaranteed contract end up being a complete disaster, so I think the NFL got the picture, bad idea. So I don't know if that's going to be happening again anytime soon. But I could not for the life of me figure out why you would care other than just being nosy and trying to protect people from themselves. Like, let them make stupid decisions. The only thing I could think, and it started to make more sense, is what I've been saying about the NFL for kind of a long time. I think Roger Goodell, not to say that Roger Goodell was directly involved, I don't know, because there's a confidentiality order, meaning you're not really allowed to speak too much about this. I guess they were allowed to talk about the outcome, which is really all we know, but no further details or something to that effect. I don't know. But Roger Goodell, in my opinion, is sort of a puppet of the owners. The owners get sued because of, player injuries. Roger Goodell institutes these new things. If the NFL needs to make changes, sweeping changes about, changing the field conditions for the sake of player safety, which you supposedly care about, they don't want to do it anymore. I wonder why the NFL doesn't want to do it. Because the owners don't want to do it. But wait a minute, shouldn't there be some separation there? That's up to you to protect the players and to protect the NFL. And if you determine that that's what needs to happen, then that's what needs to happen. And the owners are just going to have to deal with it. But the point is, the owners dictate to Roger Goodell to a very large degree, in my opinion. I think there's sort of a cohesive relationship there. Roger Goodell makes a very comfortable living running the NFL. The owners are the one that decide whether he gets to keep his job. And he wants to keep his job. And in order to keep his job, he has to keep the owners happy, right? So why would the NFL be trying to talk to other teams about not doing this? Because other owners want to talk amongst them. The point is that there's collusion among the owners. And really the fact that the NFL is talking to the owners, to me, only proves the point that the NFL is just a puppet of the owner, which, I mean, it's such a corrupt system, Fortunately, it's not like an actual governmental system, so it's like, whatever. It's just gonna be an inefficient and poorly run thing, which is unfortunate. But that's and again, I'm speculating, but I can't think of a single other reason why the NFL would interject, other than on the behalf of other owners, because owners don't want to go down that road. And they're worried that once that dam opens up, they're not going to, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Once you start getting so desperate that you start paying fully guaranteed contracts, you start screwing over all the owners, because now, in order for me to compete, we have to start paying fully guaranteed contracts. And we don't want to go down that road. All we're doing is hurting each other. So my assumption is that the NFL is speaking to teams on behalf of owners. And for all I know, it's just a handful of very powerful owners like Jerry Jones. And remember, this last quarterback cycle, Dak Prescott was one of those guys, right? As was Lamar Jackson. And apparently somebody approached the Baltimore Ravens and was like, hey, probably shouldn't give him fully guaranteed money. Why? Well, maybe because Jerry Jones is over there sweating bullets. Just speculating, that's all. But to me, it's just stupid. The NFL should not care. If the NFL operated as it should operate, in my opinion, it should be a separate entity from the individual owners and individual teams. Meaning how they run their businesses, how they run their teams, how they decide to pay their players, so long as it's within the structure that you set up and the NFLPA have set up in terms of how contracts work, how the salary cap works. As long as it's within that structure, it is none of your business. And I don't just mean you shouldn't be nosy. What I literally mean is you shouldn't care. But you do, which is weird. I know why owners would care. I don't know why you would care. There needs to be better separation there. I don't like it. I've said it 1,000 times. I don't like Roger Goodell. I don't like how he's doing things. Some of it is fine. I get it. I think he does a good job of expanding. I think he does a good job of making sure there's plenty of money, negotiating with all these different companies to make sure that, and I want this thing to have a lot of money. More money means more football, better pay for players, more money for Green Bay Packers to build and expand, more money to hire coaches and all these things. It's a great thing, which means more fans, which means more money, which means more stuff, which means more fans, which means more money. It's just a big old cyclical thing. But the guy is so singularly focused on wrong things. And again, I do not like the relationship between Roger Goodell and the owners. I feel like it's way too tight. It's become this little cliquey good old boys club. And I don't think the owners should be running the NFL, and I think that they are. Not to say that they couldn't do a lot of good things, because there's some, actually probably mostly, there's parallels between what NFL owners want and what fans want, and that is just a great NFL experience. But there's going to be a lot of things in order to do it the right way that NFL owners are not going to be the biggest fan of. And in those moments, we need to go against the owners. The NFL should only be in the business of the NFL. There is no reason for the NFL organization to be reaching out to teams and saying, hey, we shouldn't be paying. And by the way, they shouldn't be. Shouldn't be doing fully guaranteed. It's a bad idea. I don't think it's a good idea. But if they want to do something stupid, they should be able to do something stupid, and the NFL should not care. All right. I tell you what, let's take a break right here. We'll come back. There is a little bit of Aaron Rodgers news, not as much as I thought. I saw social media was blowing up like crazy. Everybody talking about retirement. I'm like, did he say he was going to retire? I haven't seen a ton regarding that, but I'll tell you what I found. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Article, MSN.com, Will Brinson. Jets reportedly asked Aaron Rodgers to stop doing Pat McAfee appearances if he wanted to stay with the team. This is kind of interesting because last time we had talked, the idea was essentially they sat down with Rodgers and said, we're moving on. At least that was the impression that was given. Not to say that that was explicitly said, but it is definitely a very different picture to say that. Now, let's get into some of the details, assuming they're correct, because Rodgers has definitely pushed back, I believe, on Diana Rossini specifically, but we're going to go based off of what she had to say. Let's start right here. You can't sugarcoat it, although some have tried. It was a disaster, and a public disaster at that, with Rodgers appearing weekly on the Pat McAfee show to talk about the situation over the last few years. Those appearances, according to Athletics' Diana Rossini on her Scoop City podcast, may have played a role in Rodgers and the Jets parting ways this offseason. Quote, I was told that when they had conversations with Aaron Rodgers about what the future would look like, if you're going to be a part of this team, you're going to attend all of training camp. You're not going to do Pat McAfee interviews anymore. Co-host Chase Daniel was taken aback and pressed Rossini on it, who emphasized the issue with Rodgers may have been more of a holistic approach from a new regime spearheaded by head coach Aaron Glenn, whom they hired this offseason. Quote, they had a conversation with him of, if you're going to stay here, here's how we want it to be, Rossini said. So this is, to me, Aaron Glenn getting control back. Asked specifically who said these things to Rodgers, Rossini said both newly hired GM Doug Mogie and Glenn delivered the message. Quote, the GM and the head coach, Rossini replied back. Look, I think it's Aaron Glenn is the one pushing for I'm holding everyone accountable and every single person on this team is going to be treated the same way. At the end of the day, the McAfee appearances almost certainly weren't the specific reason for this short-lived marriage, which is something Rossini conceded on the show. I think that no matter what the Jets were going to say, Aaron Rodgers wanted to move on, Rossini said. Look, do I think it's just like anything else you want to listen to, right? I think he was smart to listen to the Jets and be like, where do we stand? How does this work? And maybe if they were on the side of maybe convincing him more, this could have changed. But this wasn't the way it was when they traded for him. It was exciting. He was the GM. He's the GM, no more. Well, look, this needed to happen. In fact, the Jets were stupid for allowing this to happen to begin with. It needed to never happen. I'm glad that they were stupid because we got a lot of compensation out of it. It was probably a difficult, tall task for Gutekunst to find somebody dumb enough to give us that amount of compensation for Aaron Rodgers, but at the end of the day, we found him. And it was the Jets. And what the Jets did was they brought in a quarterback and said, sure, you can be the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and the general manager, and we'll see how that turns out. And it was a freaking disaster. And now they go hire a guy that comes from a very successful program, seems to be doing things the right way, comes in and says, I'm in charge of this thing. I'm going to be running this, and nobody is going to be telling me what to do. And that goes for the GM as well. I'm running things. You're not going to tell me what to do. In fact, here are the rules that we're laying out. You will be in training camp. You will stop doing these interviews. And I'm positive there was never any doubt that this conversation was going to end right then and there. The GM and the head coach knew full well Rodgers would not be okay with that, would not say, yeah, sounds good, I'll definitely do that. He has no interest in that kind of an arrangement. And like she said, Aaron Rodgers probably knew it was over, potentially also had no interest in being there. He said he did, which I'm inclined to believe, unless there's other reasons not to. But either way, that was what was said, supposedly, and that's how it ended. So now we sit, and the question is, again, is he going to end up retiring? I don't know where all this talk of retirement is coming from. I think just an argument just kind of got spun up to make it seem like news happened when there's just this massive argument taking place. I think that's really all it was. A lot of talk about if he retires, you're a bunch of jerks and all this stuff. Like, what happened? As far as I can tell, nothing happened. Some other interesting news, though. We've talked about the odds that different people end up in different places. Actually, I don't know if we've fully done that, but we did it with Rodgers at least. I've got some more info on that. And so there's some betting odds. Giants 1,200, Rams 1,000, Colts 850, Titans 750, Vikings plus 400, 49ers plus 350, Raiders plus 300, Steelers plus 200. Talked about that before, that the Steelers were right now the odds-on favorites to get Aaron Rodgers, assuming he doesn't retire. Well, that just got a whole lot more uncomfortable. Deshaun Elliott, a defensive back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is via Steelers Depot on X, said Deshaun Elliott, not a fan of Aaron Rodgers coming to the Steelers, quote, leave his you-know-what at the retirement home. I'll be honest, look, this whole thing is pretty crazy, and it seems unlikely that this would be the case. I don't know how easy it's going to be for him to get a job if he wants one. The more I think about it, Pittsburgh, obviously he has a lot of respect for the head coach. He's not going to put up with Aaron Rodgers. I think they respect each other as competitors and as players. I don't see that as compatible because they're both very strong-minded, and the head coach is going to be the head coach, and he's not going to tolerate Aaron Rodgers puffing his chest out and trying to tell him what to do. You think Minnesota Vikings? I kind of feel the same way. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe they're looking at it and saying, hey, if we can get that out of Sam Darnold, imagine what we could do with Aaron Rodgers. We could win a Super Bowl with the guy. It's possible. But they're kind of starting to at least a little bit act like a competent organization. Do you want to follow the Jets and what they just did? Or are you going to bring them in and sit them down and have that real serious, tough conversation? We will not be bringing your friends here. Do you understand? And you will work with my offensive coordinator, and you will run the plays that I tell you to run. He's not going to he doesn't care. So the Steelers are a tough sell, especially with the players there saying explicitly on social media, we don't want him here. The Raiders make almost no sense to me from the standpoint of they're purging all of their players. They just got rid of Devontae. They got rid of running back who is now a Green Bay Packer. There's talks about Maxx Crosby wanting to leave, possibly being gone. And what? You're going to add Rodgers for what? To do what? With who? 49ers are probably going to pay Purdy. Why would they not? And Kyle Shanahan is very similar. He is not going to put up with Aaron Rodgers. He is a guy that demands to be in control and will be. I think they're just going to pay Purdy. I just don't know where it makes sense. Maybe the Rams. Just because you already got Stafford, so if for some reason the thing with Stafford doesn't work out, you just kind of keep that train a-rolling. It's got to be a playoff team that is just a quarterback away and feels like they can handle that situation. Who's a playoff team with a bad quarterback? The Vikings are really the only one that I can think of. And that whole thing was so fluky to begin with, and there's going to be so much turnover. The fact that they had their best season ever with a bunch of one-year rentals, and now all those guys are leaving, and maybe they can replicate it, but maybe they're going to suck. I don't know. Nobody knows what they're going to do. Such a weird and unique situation. Getting back into NFL trade news, here's a little clip, compliments of Mr. Clayton. He clipped this thing together. This is Kay Adams, who is a fantastic ambassador for the Green Bay Packers for some reason. But not to say that was explicitly talked about here. She's just done a great job for the Packers so far. Anyways, Maxx Crosby sat down. Here is how that went.
Like, it started with the Lions, then there's like Buffalo, then you got Green Bay. There's a million teams, and for me, I'm like, I feel like my own fans from the Raiders and just fans in general, like, they get mad at me through other teams' love.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's
weird.
You well enough, but I feel like it's changed a little bit. Am I wrong? You have a tattoo, Raider, okay. And now it's like, but now it's like, well, I don't know you. Yeah, Lions thing happens, and now I feel like, okay, Cam Jordan sat here yesterday, and I said, would you pull a Myles Garrett, go get yourself a ring? He said, absolutely not. So that's one end. Then there's Myles Garrett demanding a trade, requesting a trade. Where are you? Where are you on from I'm not leaving to I'm requesting a trade?
Right now,
you're allowed, Matt.
I'm taking it one step at a time. There's obviously the contract thing that has to be hashed out. That's one part of it. There's also what's the plan? You know what I mean? I've had the opportunity to sit with front office and ownership and head coach and GM. Like, I've been having those conversations and continue to have that as far as what's the plan moving forward. Because I have one body and I can only play for so long. And the way I play, like, I'm gonna play with reckless abandon. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna play forever. I want an opportunity to win. That's all that matters to me. I do believe in what we're doing so far and what I've heard and what I've seen. And I'm just going to continue taking it one step at a time. So there's so many different elements to it. Like I said, from the contract to this and that, you got to figure out who's our future at certain positions, things like that. So I'm truly, and I'm not just saying this to be like politically correct, I'm literally taking it one day at a time. For me, I want to win no matter what. Like, I'm an ultimate competitor. I want a chance. And I don't want to join the damn Chiefs and get a Super Bowl. That would mean absolutely nothing to me. I want to join, you know, if I want to be a part, not join, start controversy. I want to be a part of winning in a culture that is about winning. And that's all that matters to me. At the end of the day, like, I want to be in the Hall of Fame, and I want to go, and I want to.
And you
Super
deserve
Bowl
it. And you
ring.
shouldn't feel bad about doing what you want to do.
No, absolutely.
And I love that for you.
I don't feel bad about it. I want to be a Super Bowl champ and a Hall of Fame.
Let's go. Tell me what you're doing with that.
All right, so I have to unmute myself real quick. First of all, a couple things. This is almost verbatim what Myles Garrett said. He wants to, he wanted to know the plan, exactly what Maxx Crosby said. I want to know in other words, let's talk about the contract, lay that at my feet first. Then, if that's good enough, I need you to sit down and explain to me how you're going to provide to me what he just said, which, by the way, I would be stunned if the Raiders can pitch that to him. What does he want? He wants to be in an environment in a locker room where it's about football and people want to win. That's entirely the reason Maxx Crosby and Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs wanted to leave. That's exactly the comment Josh Jacobs made when he came here. It's just how it's different. Similar to, I forgot who it was. Somebody with the Chiefs who was with a different team just talked about how, Dallas, I think it was. Talked about Dallas is all about image and in the media and all that stuff, and you come to Kansas City and it's just about winning and all that. And fortunately, he said he doesn't want to go to Kansas City, so that's good. I mean, I know they're rivals, so that's probably a big part of it. But so we can scratch them off the list. But he wants to go be a part of something. Now, yes, Detroit is on that list. There's not going to be really any lists that we could be on that Detroit's not going to be on. That's just the reality of it. But they're not going to get Maxx Crosby and Myles Garrett and Khalil Mack and everybody else. So regardless of the situation, the Packers are going to have an opportunity for a guy like this. And I just the way he laid it out, and I believe what he said. And again, it reminds me very much of the guy that just came out and said, "Nope, they offered me the contract and they sat down and told me the plan, and I said no, thank you, and I asked for a trade." Now, again, that's an ugly situation. I'm guessing how the Raiders have been purging players left and right, that they're not really going to fight too hard. If Maxx Crosby says he wants to go, we'll see how hard Cleveland's going to go to the mat on that one. But that's going to be the situation. And again, they're going to have to figure it out. It's not like they can just really drag this out, because it's in their best interest as well. If this is not going to work out, you don't want to be in a situation where Myles Garrett was traded, Khalil Mack was traded, Josh Sweat was traded, Trey what the heck is it? Trey Hendrickson traded. All these guys are traded, and now you come back to the market like, okay, who needs an edge rusher? And everybody goes, I mean, I'll take him, but I can't offer you. All the appealing deals are gone. All the big deals happen day one, like at 3:00 or whatever time it is during the official tampering period. Boom. Big announcement. So that's like that week, that 3, 4, 5 days, however long. That's when deals you want to get done, because that's a lot of the big deals. You drag it out, you're hurting yourself. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. So you need to sit down with him and get the contract figured out. The fact that you haven't done that yet is not great. Then you got to do the sales pitch and everything else. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But just based on what he had to say, you want to be a Hall of Famer and you want a Super Bowl ring, you're not getting that in Las Vegas, dude. You're not, and you know that. And again, you want to be with a group of guys that are all about ball. Come on, man. Look, and where is Green Bay at right now? We're coming to a place where it's like we need guys that get this, right? We had Rodgers and Bakhtiari and all that stuff, and they know how to act, how to be or whatever. There was some kind of divaness and all that or whatever, but there's still that veteran, like, this is how you conduct yourself thing. We had a lot of young people that were hungry, but I don't know that they necessarily knew how to direct that energy. Then you get Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs, and they come in. And now there's like this core forming of guys that are like, this is what we do. And you find out who doesn't want to play along, and you make them go, and then you bring in more people that want to be a part of this thing. And now you've got people, for example, like Keyshawn Nixon, who was with the Raiders. He was in that locker room with Rich Bisaccia, by the way, with Josh Jacobs, saying, look, I know what that locker room was like, but I know what you were like, and you know what I was like, and we're here now, and I can tell you it's different here. And remember, Ian Rappaport laid out in his article, Ian and Tom Pelissero, that Crosby's probably looking for a place that has that sort of locker room, that is a playoff team, and then he adds in a seemingly completely unnecessary line of where he knows people. Well, where else would that be? I mean, we don't know where Devontae is going to end up, but where is the collection of veteran Raiders? Well, we got 3 of them. Again, Bisaccia, Josh Jacobs, Keyshawn Nixon. Who else has those Raiders that he wants to play with? And then you got Keyshawn Nixon tweeting out, Maxx Crosby, come be great with a real team, my boy. So there's a lot of active recruiting going on. Just a few minutes later, he reaches out to another former teammate. Actually, I don't know. Were they teammates? I don't know. Maybe not. Doesn't matter. Former Raider, Davante Adams. He tweeted out to him, yo, Tay, pull back up. Speaking of Davante Adams, Jason Wilde put an article out from Madison.com. His tweet here says, in Wisconsin State Journal and on Madison.com, Davante Adams has dropped hints of a reunion. Keyshawn Nixon and Josh Jacobs are actively recruiting him, but do the Packers want the All-Pro back? If so, Adams is open to the idea. It's not necessarily earth-shattering news that he's open to the idea, but still, it's kind of pushing in a certain direction. A couple other little minor things, sticking with the trade thing first of all. Deebo Samuel actively mentioned the Denver Broncos as far as a team he wants to go to. Again, I don't think this is going to work between Deebo and the Packers, but it's still worth following. It's also, again, anytime somebody hits the market, it helps us, even if they don't come to Green Bay. Because if Deebo did go to Denver, then that's one other person, wide receiver, that maybe we do want, that isn't going to Denver. With that said, apparently the price for Deebo is quite low. According to the latest reports, the San Francisco 49ers are reportedly open to trading wide receiver Deebo Samuel for a relatively low price. ESPN's Nick Wagner stated that the 49ers would probably be satisfied with a price of 1 or 2 day 3 picks. To be clear, that would be at most a 4th rounder. I mean, as far as high as it goes. Day 3 starts in the 4th round. So maybe you're talking a 4th round pick for Deebo, or like a 5th and a 6th or something. A pick swap in the 2nd. Either way, just make sure that you calibrate, because this is probably going to be one of those things. And there's going to be a lot of this, because there's a lot of big names, it seems like, this year that are going to be either traded or free agents or whatever the case may be. And some of them are going to go for cheap, and they're not going to go to the Packers, and Packer fans are going to lose their freaking minds. Deebo Samuel is not really being talked about by Packer fans at all. I keep bringing it up because it seems like a point of interest. I haven't seen a single Packer fan mention this man's name, which really surprises me. I'm making a prediction right now that Deebo Samuel will go somewhere like Denver for, let's just call it a 4th-round pick, and every single Packer fan is going to freaking lose it that Gutekunst wasn't willing to give up a 3rd for Deebo Samuel. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm just saying. And then last couple things here. Former Chiefs wide receiver Kadarius Toney arrested for allegedly strangling a woman. He was accused of putting his hands around a woman's throat during a dispute on January 14th. He allegedly squeezed with enough force to cause her to be unable to breathe. He then took the woman's phone so that she could not call 911. He was jailed on February 6th on one charge of aggravated assault and one charge of obstructing, harassing 911 calls. It's crazy to think that there was a time where we contemplated, should we draft this guy? I do remember being completely out when I found out he wanted to have a rap career. That was it for me, dude. I was like, I've seen this freaking movie before, and plus his rapping sucked. Like, if he was good at it, maybe, but like when you're really bad and you have a promising, lucrative NFL career sitting right in front of you, and you're like, yeah, but I want to be a rapper, and you're bad at it, and you have no self-awareness about that, I'm sorry. Maybe that's stupid criteria, probably not as stupid as my neck tattoo criteria for pass rushers, which is now my standing criteria moving forward. You have to have tattoos. You gotta be a little crazy if you're trying to kill quarterbacks. Van Ness with his pretty hair, dude. I just had a feeling with that guy. He's built like a freaking Adonis. But I don't know. Just saying, freaking guy, man. I'm glad his NFL career is a joke, though, and that he's stupid and sucks. Because he's a violent scumbag loser. Lastly, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but I have to point this out because this is such a fake, scammy, stupid thing. I understand this is how, promotions and all that stuff work. I'm not big into baseball, so I don't know much about John Rocker and who that guy is. Sounds like he's a big loudmouth from back in the day. And Pat Mahomes' dad was a baseball player. I don't know if you saw this. There was a video that came out of John Rocker and Pat Mahomes' dad in New Orleans getting into an altercation. If you saw that video, tell me if I'm crazy. That was the fakest, most set up thing I've ever seen. Like, something about it just seemed way off. Like, I believe that they hated each other because a lot of people hate John Rocker, and John Rocker's got a big mouth. So I could see Pat Mahomes Sr. being like, I hate this freaking guy or whatever. But to start with, you have somebody recording, which is always something to be interested in. Like, why is somebody just pointing the camera in that direction to begin with nothing going on? You're pointing over the shoulder of Pat Mahomes toward where John Rocker is about to walk out. Interesting. And then John Rocker turns around and just happens to immediately recognize him and say, Pat, what's going on? And he goes over to shake his hand. He pulls his hand away. And then there's like that thing where people are being held back, but it felt very WWE-ish. And I'm like, something doesn't feel right about this. And then as Pat Mahomes Sr. is being pulled away, John Rocker throws his beer at him, but it's a very weird, not super aggressive like you would expect John Rocker, like an overhand, from a baseball player, just pelts him in the back of the head. He barely flips it toward his feet and then throws his hands up like, what you gonna do? It's like, why did you just throw it at the ground near his feet? Why didn't you pelt him in the back of the head with a beer? So I was like, but it doesn't make sense. Why would you just set this up? It's so stupid. Especially people that probably really genuinely don't like each other. Why would you set up a little skit like this? But it's very fake. And then I see this. Let's see, when was this recorded here? This was at 1 o'clock, so this was 2.5 hours ago. So we're talking 20 hours later. 20 hours later, after John Rocker at least posted his thing. Here is Dave Portnoy.
All right, breaking news. I don't know if you saw this little this little beef on Bourbon, the beef on Bourbon Street this past weekend. John Rocker and Pat Mahomes Sr. going at it, almost broke out in a fight. I guess they fucking hated each other since their playing days baseball. I mean, I guess not surprising. Everyone has beef with John Rocker. But they signed the fucking paperwork. Guess what we got, boys and girls? Rough and Rowdy, April 19th, Wheeling, West Virginia. Bad Friday. Two guys, none of this like, I liked Tyson, Jake Paul. They're great. They're fucking making up and like fucking each other after the fight. This is real bad blood. And just to show that I don't hold grudges, I know Patty Mahomes, the Super Bowl guy, the guy who just got doors blown off, said he hated Barstool. Well, now your dad's fighting in our company against John Rocker, so I'm going to save a seat, free of charge. Patty Mahomes and crew, no bad blood. We can make up, watch your dad fight. That's an open invite. You say you don't like us, I get your dad to fight John Rocker and Rough and Rowdy. April 19th, Bad Friday.
So I had no idea what this was. Rough and Rowdy says, hillbilly boxing chaos like you've never seen before with commentary from Barstool Sports. So I'm guessing this came out before. I'm guessing he probably saw that these two hated each other. He reached out. He said, hey, what would, I'll set up a little boxing match. Both of these guys are probably, Pat Mahomes Sr.'s got so many legal problems. He's financially probably not doing great. John Rocker looks like he's trying to build up his profile a little bit as the bad boy of sports social media or something. So that's maybe his wanting to do it. Plus he gets to punch Pat Mahomes in the face, which I'm sure he would be interested in doing. So I'm guessing Barstool reached out to them. They set it up and they're like, hey, we got to promote this thing. What if you guys meet up in New Orleans and like it's this big dust up or whatever? It was fake. The whole thing is freaking fake. So I bring it up only because if you saw that same video, I want you that was a fake freaking video, and it just annoyed me. But it made me happy to see this, because now I feel like I'm not crazy, because I could not for the life of me figure out why you would stage something like that. But it was so fake. So unbelievably fake. But all right, let's take our final break. We'll come back, do some NFL draft. So I want to get back to, eventually, the list that I had put together of the 25 or so, 30, whatever, likely first-round picks for the Packers. But I do want to get to, because it's been a little while, I want to look at the most recent mock drafts and just kind of see what people are saying for the Green Bay Packers. All right, so let's go through a couple of these. I'll do mostly Packers, but, as we try to learn the first round or whatever, anything interesting that kind of pops out, I will mention it without going through the whole thing. So I want to start with Kyle Krabs, now over at 33rd Team. I'm trying to pick either news organizations that are more reputable or people. In this case, I think both 33rd Team and Kyle Krabs. First of all, he has Cam Ward going number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans, followed by Travis Hunter, Cleveland Browns. So he does have the Titans staying. I don't know. Sometimes they do no trades, and so it kind of gets to be this whatever. But then Shadur Sanders, the second quarterback, would go to the Giants. Also want to mention that Teteroa McMillan, the wide receiver, I want to track that because it's really interesting. In fact, let me pull this up real quick here. Grinding the Mocks had posted some stuff here. 4 biggest risers, 4 biggest fallers. The 4 biggest risers, by the way, were Elijah Arroyo, tight end out of Miami, Darius Alexander, defensive tackle out of Toledo, Azaria Thomas, cornerback out of FSU, and Carson Schwessinger, linebacker out of UCLA. The 4 biggest fallers, Nick Scorton, edge rusher out of Texas A&M, Ariante Ursi, offensive tackle, Minnesota, Siobhan Revel, cornerback out of East Carolina, which is interesting. I want to look at that in a minute, and Teteroa McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. And I had mentioned to you recently when we went through, I was surprised seeing him go in kind of the mid to late 20s in a couple mocks. So very split opinion on him. If we actually look at it, they've got been kind of tracking all the mocks and whatever, and you can kind of see he was at pick 16 back of June of last year. He kind of peaked around December. It was a very slow decline, so he was at about pick, I don't know what that is, 6 or so. Very slow decline out to about February, like early February, I guess, and then he just plummeted Right now, he's down to about pick 10, which doesn't seem crazy, but it is just a straight arrow down. So it'll be interesting to continue to track that one and see what happens with him. I want to see if I can find Siobhan Revel. So for him, it was a similar thing. He was kind of a nobody for a while. He got noticed, kind of skyrocketed up around October-ish, November-ish. Slow increase to about January and a plummet. Now, again, maybe a slight, I'm not talking 5th round, but he was, the metric I'm looking at is number 1 pick and round 2. So I'm kind of eyeballing it here, but he is at the back of round 2. So let's just say he peaked at about 20 and right now is sitting at about pick 30. That's just sort of a tracking the consensus mock draft or tracking the mock drafts and building sort of a consensus. So just pointing out, he still has Teteroa McMillan going 7 to the Jets. He's got the Bears taking Will Campbell. He does have Mike Green, the pass rusher out of Marshall, going 12. That's another one where a lot of Packer fans want him, and I keep seeing him go around this range. That's sort of Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, 12, 13, 14-ish range. Jahdae Barron is gone at 15. I wouldn't be mad about that because I'm just saying. Gray Zabel gone at 18. That's the interior offensive lineman that has been skyrocketing recently. Jackson Dart goes 21. That would be fantastic if the Pittsburgh Steelers took a quarterback and Jackson Dart there, because that's a player that falls to us, obviously. Matthew Golden then goes 22. And then at 23, the Green Bay Packers select Trey Amos. It's not an uncommon pick. He says Green Bay needs cornerback help, and it looks like the future is Jair done in Green Bay. The other cornerback spot has been a long-term vacancy since it became apparent Stokes wouldn't hit like they had hoped. The Packers compare their overhauled safety room with a physical ball hunter in Trey Amos. Amos boasts confidence, physicality, and length, all common themes among NFL great corners. Down in that scheme fit thing, and again, this is what I had said about Siobhan Revel. That makes sense. I think it was Revel. But he says, ideal scheme fit. Amos projects as an NFL starting perimeter cornerback. You'll need to be vigilant about his hands and how physical he plays at the catch point. He goes on to say, but teams that desire a deep third corner in cover 3 or a press-heavy man defender can find both starting roles for a player of his stature and skill set. Again, we played a ton of cover 2 last year. I don't think it's because Hafley wants to run cover 2. Of course, you're always going to run cover 2, but I don't think it was the intention to be one of the most cover 2 heavy teams in football. I think he wants to be on the other end of the spectrum where we're more cover 1, cover 3. Maybe, and that doesn't even necessarily mean, I don't mean more as in 50%. I mean more whatever that is on the high end. That might be 30, 40%. But if that's the plan, then this is what you're looking for. Guys that fell past us that everyone would flip out about, Emeka Egbuka went at 25. Tyleik Williams might draw some excitement. Same with TJ Sanders, especially when they got the Eagles taking TJ Sanders, a defensive lineman. People are going to lose their mind because we just now at this point assume the Eagles got some kind of stud defensive lineman and we passed on them. Mock draft by NFL.com, Chad Reuter. These are just mocks that were done in the last couple days. I'm not going back infinity here, but this is his first mock draft. I think everybody's got their first done. Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, Zerline, Freeland, Reuter, whatever. But this is Reuters. He also has Cam Ward going number 1 to Tennessee, then Travis Hunter, then Shadur Sanders, then Abdul Carter. So it's kind of that front 4 has been sort of the standard. Interesting enough, though, he has Ashton Gienti going 6 to the Raiders. I didn't mention it in the last one, but he was closer to 20 in that one. So that's another one where everyone acknowledges this guy's a complete stud. How early is a running back going to go? And, when you look at what the Eagles did, there might be some teams that see that and think that that means that running backs are the new way to win Super Bowls, which would be misguided, but somebody may pull the trigger on a super talented running back. He's got Teteroa McMillan going at 12, so a little bit further down. Jahdae Barron again going in the teens at 14, so he may be out of reach at this point. Denver taking Colston Loveland, obviously the tight end. Derek Harmon, gone at 18. I don't even remember seeing him in the last one. I don't know if he fell or if I just missed him. Harmon is a big name for the Packers, Oregon defensive tackle. Quinshon Judkins, running back out of Ohio State at 21. I have not seen that. Green Bay Packers at 23. Michael, I'm not entirely sure, Williams, Georgia edge rusher. That would be a very Packers pick. He says Williams could go earlier in the draft. An exceptional NFL scouting combine workout would help in that regard, like it did for Georgia lineman Trayvon Walker. However, the Packers would undoubtedly love it if a powerful pass rusher were still available at 23. Edge rushers Jermaine Johnson, George Karlaftis, and Gregory Rousseau were picked in this range in recent years. All three of them obviously worked out. So makes sense. That one makes sense to me. Guys that would fall, Luther Burden, I think for those that want a wide receiver, that would be one that I wouldn't expect to make it this long. Again, Ibuka going at 27, a little bit later. That's actually a trade, so he is doing trades. He has Eagles coming up for him. Edge rusher Tuimalau at 29, Azaria Thomas, the corner, at 30. There's so many good players, man. I love this draft. I mean, just from the stamp, like I said, you've got all these guys that are positions of need for us. So many corners, so many wide receivers. So my son, every year for the last, this is probably year 3, maybe year 4 for him, but we've got a little system down where he scouts players. Now, he just flies through them, which is fine. He covers a lot of ground. But we did wide receivers, and what I did is I just said, okay, let's take the top 200 guys, and we'll break it down that way, rather than just doing like 10 receivers, 10 of this, 10 of this, because 10 receivers might be like through the second. There are, I think in the top 200, which is through the 5th round or 6th, I think through the 6th round. Packers' 6th round pick, I think, is at 200. So really all you're missing is the 7th round if you do the top 200. But there were 25 wide receivers. Just a shocking amount. And I think most of them were inside the top 100. And just in that little bit, as I'm getting him video clips and whatnot, I just do YouTube for him because he does not like the all 22. It's very, he gets very annoyed that it's like, why they're running the ball every play and I'm watching wide receivers. Why do I need to see this? So we just do YouTube. But just on those little clips, I'd watch a little bit. You know, I'm trying to fly through it just to get him his links so he can do his scouting work. But I'm watching some of these guys, and first of all, I'm like 15 down, and that's when you get like, I don't know, some of these guys that are super popular. It's like, holy crap, like he's all the way down here? Like that's way too late. And then you look at it and you're only at like 90, so we're talking maybe 3rd round pick, just because there's so many of them. And I'm watching guys that I haven't even seen yet. I want to go back and figure out who it was. You want to talk about a Deebo Samuel type. There was a guy, I just watched like one catch, so big and physical and shifty. I was like, who is this now? I just have a feeling I'm going to fall in love with this wide receiver class. But a million edge rushers, a ton of corners, not a lot of interior offensive linemen, but whatever else you want. Man. And it's scary because some of these guys are going to be superstars. Some of these guys are going to be garbage. And you just hope that you get that diamond in the rough. All right, let's do Rob Rangs, NFL draft analyst for Fox Sports. Rob Rang actually has Tennessee Titans taking Abdul Carter, edge rusher, out of Penn State, so it's not completely 100%, which I love. I hate when everybody knows what's going to happen. And again, I kind of think this makes more sense. But he's got that, and then it's Travis Hunter going to Cleveland. That's 3 in a row now. And then you start the run on quarterbacks. Then it's Cam Ward to the Giants, and Shadur falls all the way to 6 to Las Vegas. This is also probably a no trades thing, which is why that is the way that it is. The other thing I love is how very different, and it's early, but how very different we had in the last mock draft. The first mock draft, Michael Williams was after us. The second one, we picked him. The third one, he goes 9 to the Saints. That's how crazy all of this is. And like I said, the wide receivers, I'm watching guys that are at like 104 or whatever, and it's like, this guy's really good. Some people are already all in on this guy's going to be a first-round pick. It's all over the place. Also, it seems to be a strong consensus that the Bears are taking offensive tackle at 10. Shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Ashton Genty goes 12 to Dallas here. Teteroa McMillan goes at 17. See, he's creeping, man. And 17 is striking distance. If the Packers loved this guy as a wide receiver, if they saw him as like the last true blue chipper, and you know, maybe blue chip is overstating it, but the last, let's say, you know, second tier guy, not like the number 1 overall pick type of Aiden Hutchinson type, but whatever the next one is, and this is the last one available, and he's a top 10 guy, and he made it to 17, this is an easy pull the trigger situation. Jahdae Barron at 19. A little bit later, still before the Packers. Luther Burden at 21. He seems to be lingering right around where the Packers are, so that's going to be an interesting one. Green Bay Packers, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. The other thing I love, we're not in a situation, because there's so many positions of need that fall in the range, on top of nobody knows where these guys fit. The big boards are all over the place for these guys. Everybody has very different views on it. It means the Packers are not going to consistently see the same 2 to 3 names over and over again. Maybe we'll get there, but right now, there's a ton of names, and I'm excited about it. He says Philadelphia's demolition of the Kansas City blocking scheme could have huge reverberations throughout the NFL. Green Bay has always prioritized defensive linemen, and if a stout player like Nolan is still on the board, this could be the case. You got Judkins again here going to Minnesota, running back Ohio State, so that's becoming a more popular name, I guess. Again, Tuimalau, here we go. First of all, Jack Sawyer, defensive end out of Ohio State at 28. Mike Green, 29. Remember in the first mock, I think it was, he went at like 12? They have Mike Green at 29. That's how just all over the place it is right now. And Mr. Tyleik Williams, 30 to the Buffalo Bills, and they have him at a defensive tackle. We can't even determine if they're inside or outside guys yet. James Pierce, edge rusher, 31. All right, let's do Walter football, Mr. Walter Cherepinski, and then we'll call it. He's got Cam Ward, number 1, Shadur Sanders, number 2, and then Travis Hunter to the Giants. That's interesting. He's got Teteroa McMillan at 6, so again, very early. James Pierce, who I just said at 30, they have at 8. Tyler Booker, he's a guard, but offensive lineman again for the Chicago Bears. Genti again to Dallas. I think I'd mentioned that before. That's a very popular pick. Kind of seems like that might be the floor kind of a thing where he could go earlier, but a lot of people don't see him making it past Dallas. Mr. Michael Williams at 15 to the Falcons here. Azaria Thomas at 16. This is a 4-rounder, so we'll go through all 4 rounds here just close out the right way. Luther Burden at 17. And some of these names are just so different. You got Benjamin Morrison, who I'd mentioned before, going right at 22. And then the Green Bay Packers taking Isaiah Bond, wide receiver out of Texas. Says the Packers have a bunch of number 2 receivers on their team, but they need a number 1 threat. Isaiah Bond has dangerous speed and huge upside. There seems to always be this guy, and there might be a couple this year because there's a lot of receivers, but there's always this guy that we have this conversation every single time. And there's a speed guy, and it could be cool, do the whole like Miami Dolphins thing with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and just go straight speed. Should we do it? You got Watson and Isaiah Bond. That conversation's going to be had again. All right, second round. Now, this is where it gets interesting, too. And Walter football, to be clear, always has some severe outliers. I like to use them because, in my opinion, Walter football is the OG of the NFL draft internet space. This dude, like, when I first, just forever ago, he's doing mock drafts when nobody was even talking NFL draft. Anyways, he's got Emeka Egbuka falling out of the first round, going 35 to Tennessee. Jahdae Barron going 36 to Jacksonville. Interestingly enough, those are 2 guys that I have question marks about whether people think they can be number 1s. If teams generally don't believe that these are number 1 boundary guys and are slot nickel guys, then this is probably going to happen. They'll fall to the second round, but that is the question. Jalen Milroe, quarterback, going at 37. Let's see, any other interesting names here that maybe fell? Colston Loveland. All right, let's Arroyo. That's the guy that's flying up the boards here for the Indianapolis Colts at 45. They got Tuimalau falling down to 53. And then they have the Green Bay Packers at 54, taking Savion Jones, defensive end out of LSU. Lucas Van Ness has been a disappointment for the Packers thus far. Some competition is needed to improve the pass rush. Savion Jones is very athletic, but didn't live up to it in college. He had a monster Senior Bowl. Sounds very Packers-ish. Elite athlete, not a lot of production in college, great Senior Bowl. I mean, if you could write the perfect resume for a Green Bay Packer, you just heard it right there. In the third round, they have the Green Bay Packers taking Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky. Jair Alexander can't stay healthy, and the Packers have other cornerback issues. Maxwell Hairston has plus size, and has performed on a high level thus far in school. So far, they're doing a good job of checking the boxes. And then finally, 4th round, Green Bay Packers select, obviously, Zy Alexander, cornerback out of LSU. Packers need multiple upgrades at corner. Unless Jair Alexander can suddenly remain healthy, Zy Alexander has great size and was able to create plenty of turnovers. Can you imagine having Jai and Zy Alexander on the same team? Madness. All right, I'm out of here. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.